we use here the OEX 3-person tent. They are 3-person in size, however what we do commonly use them for is for 2 people. It allows a little bit more space, it allows a bit more extra space out the front porch area for your rucksacks when you're at night, instead of you being all sort of squished in. However, lots of people do prefer the 3 people, and then what they do then is they spread the weight out a little bit more, and that means you're carrying less in your rucksacks. So each tent has a complete outer bag, okay, and inside that bag what you'll see for your convenience, as it's been designed for the DofE person, is 2 equally sized and, more importantly, equally weighted bags, okay, that are wrapped up like so. So here we've got the fly sheet, which is the outer part and the pegs, and this side here we've got the poles and then the inner part of the tent, and that'll make a bit more sense to us in a moment. We must make sure, again, you will see that all of the tents, every single part and every item within the tent is numbered. So again, you will be signed out the tent, it will be aligned to 1 person irrespective of how many people are sharing the tent. If me and 2 of my friends are sharing the tent, I'll sign it out, and then I will pass on half of the tent to somebody else, and it will be my responsibility to ensure that that half comes back to me at the end of the expedition, so that I can have the whole tent returned in my bag. Seems as though I'm the one who borrowed it. And I've got to stress that to you, because I have had people in the past that have handed in half the tents and gone, oh, so-and-so signed that out, and I refuse and send that back. It must be returned as a whole tent when you've finished your expedition. What I see commonly is when you get to the campsite, winds pick up. Okay, we're quite sheltered here at the moment, so what people do is they take out the parts of the tents and then they just chuck that on the floor. Well, the wind picks up and these disappear within seconds. Every single section of the tent has a replacement value, so this bag here just on its own is roughly about £20. So that's a lot of money for the sake of you scrunching it up into nothing, okay? And if you can't put it in your pocket, you can put it in your bag. That's what it goes down to. So there's no excuse, there's no need for it to be lying around, okay? So for the sake of this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to temporarily put it underneath my mallet, which I'll be using in just a second, okay? And I'll pop that down and that'll stop the wind from blowing it away. And in a moment when I have more bags, I'll be able to just put it underneath there, or better yet, inside that bag. I always put one inside all the others, keeps them all together, stops you from losing it. So the first thing that we need when we're putting up, we actually need parts from both, annoyingly. However, we're going to put up the outer part of the tent first. All tents come in, or most tents come in 2 parts, an outer shell and then an inner compartment. The inner compartment's the bit that you sleep in, and the outer bit is usually the waterproof piece in that sort of protects you from the elements. So first of all that we need to do is take out the outer part of the tent from the bag. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the outer part of the tent, and then I'm going to make sure that that bag is put securely inside this big piece here, just so that it's not going to disappear in the winds. And I'll make sure that's weighted down with a mallet, or you can use your rucksack or something of that nature when you're out in the field. So I'm just going to roll this out, and you'll see that the pegs have rolled out at the end there. Okay, so we'll be using those shortly. I'll just pop them aside for now. Again, I've popped them on there. It keeps everything together. We don't have pieces of kit all over the place. We're just keeping everything in one small pile, which means it's all nice, safe and secure. Okay, I am at this point going to have to open the other one because I need the poles to put in the outer. So I'll take out the inner part here. Okay, again, my bag's going to go inside there. And inside the roll here, you'll see a smaller bag, and you can feel that as well. And that smaller bag there has got the poles in. So I'm going to be needing that in just a second. Okay, I'm going to put my inner aside, and I'm going to put this bag here just inside there like I have all the others. I've now got all my bags nice and safe and secure. So I'm going to take out my poles. Okay, I'm going to put my poles down. You can probably all now guess what I'm going to do with this bag. This is going to be folded up, and it's going to join the rest of the bags, and that way it's nice and safe and secure, and I don't need to worry about it. Okay, so you've got 3 poles for this tent. The poles are joined by a piece of elastic, and the poles literally just fit inside the other. So all you'll do, okay, is just align them all together like so, and then you will end up with a complete pole. This is actually quite a straight pole. Okay, we do have some of them that are 4 years old, so some of them have developed quite a bend. They are flexible because obviously they create a dome shape. So if you look at the pole there, they are quite bendy. Please don't put too much pressure on them. They are designed for a specific thing only and not for you to be yanking down on the side. So I'll just very quickly put all of these together. Ordinarily, what you'll see out of the 3 poles is you'll see 2 that are complete a gold colour, and then 1 which is a longer one which has a silver piece in the middle. The problem that I've had over the years is replacing these gold pieces when they snap, and the only thing that I can get, unfortunately, is a silver bit. So occasionally now we do have some tents where the smaller poles do have a grey bit. So the way that we're going to distinguish the difference is we're just going to lie all of the poles down next to each other, and you can see now a clear difference in size. So this one will be a smaller one. So when I put all of this together and I lie this down, you'll see that it's another smaller one, okay, and then there I've got my 2 small ones and my large one. We're now ready to open up our outer part of the tent, and again, one thing you've got to remember is the wind can be really blowing at this point. So at no point should we let go of this. As soon as we open this up and we take it out the fold, I can assure you the wind will rush underneath the tent and it will take it and it will rip it right out of your hands if you're not careful. So what I'm going to advise to you to be sort of clever with it is to get 2 pegs. So I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to grab 2 pegs, get myself ready. Okay, and that way I'll be able to just knock it into the floor, or tack it into the floor if you like, to stop the wind from blowing it away. So I'm just going to open it up. Now you can see, you can quite easily tell which part is the outside and which part is the inner side. The inner side here is a bit more of like a dull material, and you can obviously see you can very easily tell which is the inside. When you're laying it down, you need to make sure that it's the way up as you would expect to see it off the floor. Okay, so again, like I say, the wind could be blowing now. If it is, all you'll do is just using the corner pieces here and the little loops on the material, you'll just very quickly put your peg through, okay, and you'll just tack that into the ground. I've not put it all the way in, okay, I've not sort of going mad with it. I'm just holding it into the ground so that the wind won't blow it away. This bit might be flapping around, you can use your partner to keep hold of it, but it means that you're free now to be able to work around with the rest. So if you think about your tent and how it's going to look, you're going to need a smaller pole on each of the ends and a bigger pole in the middle, and that gives you your height in the middle of the tent, as you would probably expect. So what we're going to do is we're going to take hold of a smaller pole, and if we just look down here at these sections, okay, you'll see going across the top a little tag here that indicates that it's a gold section. Over there you can see that you've got a tag for a silver section identifying the silver pole in the middle, and then at the end for your third pole it will be another gold coloured tag. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a pole and we're going to feed it through this hole here, okay, and it's going to go right the way through and it's going to come out the other end, and we're just going to leave it flat. So if I grab hold of one of those poles, it's really, really important when we're doing this that we push and don't pull. If we pull, I'm going to hold on to the thing here. If I pull, this is what's going to happen. And when that happens in the middle of the tent, it's really difficult to correct your problem because material's going to get caught up in here and all that sort of stuff. So we push through and then there won't be any breakage in the line. So here we are, we're just going to gently feed it through. Look, you might hit an end there if you just look at the tip. Okay, so what we're going to do is just move forwards. We're going to pull the material through. We're going to treat this nice and gently, and then as soon as we see the end, that's when it's okay then to feed it right the way through. And you want an equal amount of pole coming out of each end. So if this is one of the ends, the next we're going to go to the larger pole through the middle. So if I go and grab the larger pole, okay, and then take it through to the centre piece, and then do exactly the same as what I've just done. So you can see here that my pole's sort of meeting the material, so I'm just going to reach in and I'm going to pull the material through. Again, pushing the pole, never pulling, okay, and it just makes sure an equal amount is each end. And if I just straighten out the material here, you may well need to get a couple more pegs and just tag those two down, and that'll stop the whole thing from flapping around. That's totally up to you. It's a judgment call. You might have a day like today where there's no wind, and in that case you don't really need any pegs. It's totally up to you. But the pegs are a good way of you being able to limit the amount of material that's flapping around. So we've got the final pole here that's going to go through the final section that you can see. So again, pushing, never pulling. Repetition here is really important, because a lot of students tend to forget some of the basic principles. So by pushing and not pulling, and it's even more important when we're packing away the tent, you'll understand the importance of it. Right, if I come round camera side, you'll see, following the seam of where the pole has gone, you'll see the seam here continue down to the bottom, and you'll see it go right the way down. If I straighten it out there for you, look, all the way down. And when you get to the bottom, you'll see this little metal circle here, this hoop. What we're going to do is the end of the pole is going to go inside that loop there, okay? And then what I can do is I can come round this side, and this is just going to require a little bit of pushing. It becomes quite difficult, but be firm, but respect the equipment. If you just yank it through, a pole will probably snap in the middle. Remember please, these are 4 years old, they are well used and they have been well weathered, so the poles do occasionally snap. It will cause no harm to you, they'll just snap in the middle at the point of bending, and if it does, let me know and I'll happily replace a pole for you. Please don't keep it a secret, don't hide it away. Accidents happen, it's not an issue at all. So binding this way, again I'm following the seam all the way down to the bottom, okay, and there's my other loop. Now remember, as we push now, we're going to be creating an arch. So I'm going to push my pole away, and you can see everything's tightening up. And when I get to about here, it starts to get quite tight now because all the material's all sort of taut. So what we're going to have to do is really pull, and then it'll clip inside there, and then you've got a whole arc done, completed there. Okay, so we're just going to leave that completely flat. I'll probably turn it that way, just so it's out of the way, okay, and it's perfectly fine this way here. So then I'm going to repeat exactly the same with the other sections. So through here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the bottom of the seam, so I'm coming down, I'm looking, I'm going right to the bottom of the seam, and I'm just going to feed it into the hole there, okay, and then I'm going to go around the other side. This one's usually the hardest because you've got more pole and more material to push through. So I'm going to take hold of my material here, I'm going to push, and that takes up the slack if you like. And then I'm going to reach down, okay, and I'm going to find that seam, there it is, all the way down to the bottom, and then there's my little loop, and then I'm going to push it up and make sure it goes into there. Now we've got 2 arches done. So I'll just repeat that section one more time. I can see here, there it is, it's already waiting for me. So if I just pop that inside here and then go around this way. Okay, find my seam first, where is it? There it is, there's my loop. Okay, and then I'm just going to push the pole, creating that arch, and there we go. Okay. And then keep it all flat, because like I say, you don't want it all flapping around. Okay, at this point it starts getting quite easy, to be honest with you. What we're going to do is make sure that our 2 ends are pushed in securely. Of course, at this point it's worth thinking about where you're going to camp. If you have got an open space and you want your door in a particular way, as you can see here on the end, there is no door. That means it indicates it's the back of the tent. And if I flip the whole thing over, you'll see this side, okay, that it's quite clearly, it's got windows, okay, and you've got doors here just on each of the sides, so it's a completely different look. So think there, when you're at this stage, where you want your front door, which way do you want it facing? Do you want it facing in towards a group? Do you want it facing out on the side, etc.? Something you need to think about is if you're camping on a hill, when you're sleeping at night, your blood, all your muscles relax and the blood starts flowing a bit more freely. So if you are on a hill, you want your head to be at the top of the hill, and otherwise if it's at the bottom, all the blood will rush to your head at night. You'll end up with headaches and all that sort of stuff. It's not good for you. So you need to make sure at all times that when you're on a hill, your body is facing up the hill with your head at the top and your feet going down at the bottom, and then you'll be perfectly fine. Okay, so what I've done, as you saw, is I've pegged out the back side of the tent. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and get 2 more pegs, and this is where students often go wrong. So hopefully, especially with a couple of you helping out, you should find this quite straightforward. All I do at this point is I look to the 2 corners that equate to where I pegged out the other side, and as I see, here's the outside of the door here. So I'm looking at these. I'm going to put a peg through each of them, ready for me to push into the ground. I'm going to take hold of them, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift the whole tent up in the air, because if you don't, all these little pegs will scrape across the grass. Lift it up in the air. I'm going to walk backwards, and I'm going to walk backwards as far as the tent will naturally go. I'm not yanking it, otherwise the pegs will come out the other side. Okay, I'm just taking it back as far as it will naturally go, and then I'm going to tack these into the ground. So I lift, okay, I walk back as far as it will naturally go, and then I'm just temporarily pushing these into the ground. And now, as you can see, we've gone from a complete flat tent to almost the tent being completely set up. We're going to grab hold of our pegs now. And the one thing that you will be allowed to use is a mallet. Ordinarily, anything that you need, you must carry. However, the reason I add in the mallet and not expecting somebody to carry it, 1 is because it is very heavy, and 2, because I say I want you to use the mallet, because otherwise people bend the pegs as they're trying to push them in with their foot. If you use a mallet, you can tap them in gently and it keeps our pegs straight. You will come across some pegs. I think this lot here I've just straightened out. And it takes me quite a while to straighten them, but you can see in the pegs some of them there where they're slightly curved, okay, and you can see some of the grip marks where I've had to, actually it's better that side, where I've had to use the vice, okay. So it's really important that you do look after the pegs, because when they're bent, it's a nightmare to get them into the ground. And remember that under the ground sometimes lots of rock that builds up, so as you're hitting them in, you realise quickly that you're just not going to get the peg in. So you need to just take it out, readjust it, okay, and push it back in. And we'll talk about how to put the pegs in just a little while longer. So it's important that when you've got the tent out, that the tent is as taut, as straight or as tight as possible. What you don't want, okay, is any dip or any sag in the material, because if you did, what would happen is water, if it rained, would sit inside that, and even though it's a waterproof material, because it builds up, eventually the water will find its way through the material and will start dripping through onto you whilst you're sleeping. So you want to make sure it's as tight as possible, and then when the water hits it, it'll just roll off the sides. That's fine. So make sure that from the first 2 pegs that you've done, if we just come around this side, you can see that all of this here is perfectly straight and flat. Okay, so I have no issues there. You might want to put a peg in the middle one here just to pull that out a little bit further, okay, and you keep it nice and taut. So moving our way round the tent now, from the first section here, we need to make sure that this line is tight. So we don't want, okay, this here, see this little dip now coming in, we want it pulled out nice and tight. We're going to use our peg, it's going to go through that loop, we're going to pull outwards, okay, and we're going to push in. Now when we put our peg in, our pegs have got to go in, okay, at a 45-degree angle. If you try to push down, then that means you've got to go that far into the ground. If you push here, think about your surface areas, then that means you've only got to go this far into the ground where my fingers are. So it's much easier to go that far into the ground instead of that far into the ground. So if you think of your basic maths there, that'll make a lot more sense to you. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull out, we're going to push our peg in at a 45-degree angle, we're going to hold it at the bottom, and we're just gently going to hit the mallet, okay, hit the peg into the ground. I can see and feel I've hit a rock there, okay, I can feel it because the peg's not going any further. So Sometimes you might need a little bit more pressure. Okay, other times, like mine now, you'll feel it's not going any further. So you have a choice, depending on the weather situation, depending on how it is and what the weather forecast is, to leave it like that and say, oh, that'll be fine with due good weather, it's been perfectly fine, and then move on. Or take the peg out and then put it in at a different angle. So because I'm only putting up the tent temporarily, I don't need to go in any further than that. So I'm going to move on to the next one. Okay, I'm going to come round to the next one here. I'm going to put a peg through my loop. I'm going to make sure that this bit's tight. Again, I don't want it here and having all this bit of sag material. Okay, I'm going to pull it tight. I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to tack it into the ground, 45-degree angle. And then I'm just going to tap it into the ground. So this one here, I can tell I've not hit a rock and it's gone right the way down into the ground there. Okay. Should always keep our pegs together, okay, because what I know, it gets very tempting when you're putting your pegs out to have a couple of pegs here, leave a couple of pegs up where you first started, and then what happens is you end up losing them, people start treading on them, damaging them, so it becomes a bit of a nightmare. So if you keep them all together, mine is weighted because I have pegs inside here still, so it's weighted down to make sure the wind doesn't blow it. We can put a couple more on just to be extra sure if you wish, but we're always making sure that peg bag's not going to fly away. So, and then I'm just going to go round, okay, again pulling tight, looking at the material here at the bottom, making sure it's tight. Going to use the mallet, just supporting at the bottom there. I'm not going to go all the way in because again I'll be taking them out in just a second. This here is already quite tight, so I don't need to worry about that too much. I'll just knock that in a little bit more, okay. Making sure this part's tight here also, again not done a bad job there straight away. And we're going to go all the way around. Some of them you'll see are knotted here. It's just wear and tear, it's just because they're damaged. All you need to do is just be able to feed the peg through a tiny little section, so it doesn't matter if they're all knotted up and stuff. It's just done there so that we can still use the tents without having to buy new ones. Okay, so every time I do it, I'm not just putting my peg in where it is, I'm pulling the tent away, and that allows to keep it tight across the top. Okay, and then one final peg here for the bottom. Okay, now on the tent we also have these pieces of rope here. You've got this one that's open, so I'll use that one to demonstrate. They should all be tied up. These are for additional support in harsh weather. So what happens is you end up with a part of, let's have a quick look, sort this out. Says, there we go. Okay, keep it that side, it's okay, it doesn't really matter which way it goes. Okay, so you end up with a part of the material, okay, like so, and then what happens is that comes out, okay, and that's pegged into the ground this way, okay, and you can see then, and what that's done is it's given additional support. So as the wind is blowing this way and it's pushing the tent like so, this cable here is pulling the tent back, and if you have one on each side, the stronger the wind blows from each side, that tent's pulling it equally out, and it stops the whole tent from being blown too much by the wind. Because if you've got your arc here and the wind blows too much, it's going to put pressure on the pole somewhere and eventually it's going to snap. So these here prevent that from happening. You don't always need to use them. In fact, in most cases you don't need to use them. I think on DofE over the past 4 years, we've probably only ever needed to use them 2 or 3 times. So as a general rule, in the places that we go, roughly the times of the year that we go, you don't need to use those guide ropes, okay? Going round the poles, you'll see here, you'll see these little hooks. These little hooks need to be attached to the poles, and you'll see that that's the case on all of the pegs, all of the poles here as you go around, and they just push on, okay? And we do that all the way around, and what that does is it keeps the tent attached to the pole so it's secure at all time. Just for the sake of me demonstrating this video to you, I'm just going to undo this peg, and I'm just going to wrap up this guy rope here so that it's just out of the way, because I don't want to be treading on that, or even worse, falling over it and giving you all something to laugh at on the video. So I'll put that away. And then what we're going to do is open up the door. There's 2 zips, one each side, so I'll just open up those. And then if we just roll it up, you don't need to be too careful with it, you're just rolling it up roughly is perfectly fine. And that's what these 2 little hooks at the top here are for. So underneath you'll see, okay, a little loop, and you just push one through like so. So again, the loop, the little toggle goes through it, okay, and then that keeps it up. And then we've got the inside of our tent. So the next thing I'm going to do now is go and collect the inner part of the tent and show you how to put that up.